Tethered, Decay, and Fastened Renewal by CozyEarth. Read by AJ Morningstar / Supernova Podfics. Chapter 9 Friends. Summary. Danny meets up with his new friends. Danny was sore from the night before. Having a bed helped, but healing someone else while he himself needed healing wasn't the smartest. Neither was claiming another maybe ghost as a bond. Not that he really knew what that meant. Not that he really had a say in the matter either. His core had all but hijacked his brain and body, but in the end it was fine. Red Hood, whatever and whoever he is stable and safe. So, mission accomplished. He was bonded now, whatever that meant, and he did transform, so that might be a problem for future Danny. Present Danny was sore and hungry. He had managed to make himself some coffee, but only had enough left over to scowl at the toaster oven Dick had made him buy. He had expressed to the older boy that he hated toast, but Dick just laughed and said that a toaster oven could be used for so much more than toast. Danny was skeptical, but Dick apparently had magic powers of persuasion because he walked out of that store one toaster oven richer. But that didn't mean that he was in the mood to figure it out now. He decided to go to Harley's for breakfast after he finished the coffee he made himself. He shot her a text to give her a heads up and was met with spam from her excitement. Apparently, the cafe didn't get much traffic, and Danny wondered how it even managed to stay open. The walk to the cafe would have gone smoothly, but Danny's luck had to kick in. About halfway to his destination, Danny heard a scuffle. Looking down one of the alleys, he saw a burly guy and a woman. The guy was holding his hand over her mouth with one hand and a knife to her throat in the other. Her eyes met Danny's, and an almost cold snap filled the air, because he knew what had happened. Danny was pressing one foot. Before he knew what had happened, Danny was pressing one foot into the guy's chest as he laid on the ground. Danny felt his eyes burn and the cold words of warning leave his mouth. Get lost. The guy scampered off without a fight. Perks of being the Ghost King, he guesses. Danny turned to the lady, handing her the knife he'd apparently taken from the guy. You okay? The lady slowly nodded as she took the knife from him. Good. Be careful out there. And with that, Danny turned and left. Not even waiting for a reaction or thank you. He'd never gotten one back home. He wasn't expecting one now. Finally, Danny could smell the comforting aroma of baked goods filled the air. The comforting sight of the cafe in front of him. The gentle bell on the door greeted him as he entered, along with Harley. Heya, Danny. What you having? Morning. How about a muffin and a death wish? Sounds good, hun. I'll have that right out. Thanks. Danny claimed the booth from the day before and settled in. Not a moment later, Tim and Damien bound through the door. Tim looked tousled and red in the face, as if he had been running. Damien looked a little more pulled together, but he too was red in the face. Danny's core hummed with the comfortable familiarity. Hey guys, where's the fire? Danny called out in a teasing tone. Both their heads snapped to him in a weird synchronized energy. Danny! Tim breathed out his name, gasping for air. His voice felt like it held something more, but Danny was too tired to think. The brothers walked over to the booth and sat. Tim across from Danny and Damien next to him. How's it going? You get here all right? Tim asked while offering a fist bump. Danny didn't leave him hanging. That was a weird question. Yeah, the walk was a walk all right, aside from the insomnia. I'm doing fine. Danny lied. Hey, Damien. Danny greeted as he ruffled Damien's hair, scratching the back of the scalp a little before letting go. Just like he always did to Ellie. The thought made his core sink. Tim stared at them as if he was seeing a horror show. Damien preened under Danny's hair ruffle. Danny, he greeted back with a tone of acting like he didn't care, but was clearly pleased. Damien wasn't a ghost. He wasn't even a halfa. He wasn't even that much younger than Danny, but Danny knew he was something, and decided that he'd kill for the boy. The maybe liminal boy had a familiar younger sibling vibe that Danny's core clung to. It was just like how Ellie acted. She'd pretend that she didn't care about his affection, how he'd support her no matter what, but her core would always betray her real feelings. He missed his daughter. Anyway, you didn't answer my question. Danny's voice breaks Tim from his horrified trance. Why'd you two run in here like the hounds of hell were at your tail? He let his voice lean on the more teasing side of things. The two brothers shared a look of embarrassment that smoothed out to agreement after a moment. Honestly, Harl texted, um, Harl texted us that you were coming in and we were in the area, Tim sheepishly replied. Really? Danny was taken aback from this. He'd only known 4 people who ever really cared enough about where he was. 3, now. We did not wish to miss you, Damien supplied earnestly. Danny wanted to coo and squeeze him so badly. He was just so cute. Instead, Danny let out a chuckle. That's really sweet of you guys, but what were you doing in the area? It's still a little too early for most places to be open. Danny also knew, just by how they both dressed, that neither of them lived in the area. Damien spoke up before Tim could. Before Tim could get out a word. Reconnaissance. Huh. Not what Danny was expecting. For our father, he's thinking of adding a new railway in the area, Tim quickly added. Interesting. Danny figured that they were well off. He just didn't realize it was plan a new railway well off. So, what does he have you both do? Take overhead shots of the area or something? He didn't know what all went into that kind of thing and was intrigued. Tim's eyes lit up with excitement. Somehow, that got them on a roof of a church taking photos of the surrounding architecture. Thankfully, Harley had to-go cups ready for them and a paper bag full of muffins. She was starting to become Danny's favorite person. At least the gargoyle they chose to sit by was cool. The whole thing reminded him of the shenanigans that he, Sam, and Tucker would get into. His core fluttered at the thought of one day all his friends meeting. He needed to remember everything so he could share this part of his life eventually with those back home. Danny took a selfie. It was a simple start, but he wanted proof that the beginning of his new life wasn't all bad. It was a cute photo of the group. Tim was holding his camera in the back as he looked relaxed in his stance. Damien stood close to Danny with a simple but honest smile, and Danny didn't look as half dead as he was. After looking it over, he sends it in the chat that also has Dick in it. He figured the other two would never show it to their pun-loving brother otherwise. They eventually settle on the roof. Damien sits as close to Danny as he can without touching Tim just across from Danny. Danny's legs slightly tangled with his. It was nice. Tim and he started to talk about nerd stuff as Damien pulls out a sketchbook to draw. As they talk, Danny's hands find their way into Damien's hair, lightly combing through it and giving a little scratch every now and again. Damien doesn't stop what he's doing or say anything, and aside from Tim's eyes going wide as dinner plates for a moment, neither does he. Danny's core purrs with the comfort of it all, and Damien leans more into the touch. In the middle of Tim and Danny discussing the logistics as well as the pros and cons of an armored minivan, Dick sent a text saying Danny needed to meet their other brother. The two with him began to protest in chat, saying that they didn't need Jason to scare off their new friend. Jason must be the brother's name. Great, more brothers. Danny makes a joke about how big their family was. All he got in response was a mumbled, "You have no idea," from Tim as the two typed away. Apparently, this Jason had the final say, demanding that they meet at that weird burger place Dick took him to in 20 minutes. So they go to the weird burger place. Food is food, and Dick is paying. Exactly 20 minutes after Dick had texted, the other two men arrived, much to the distress of Danny's core. Danny freezes as Dick and their brother come in. It's him. That's Red Hood. Danny was happy that other ghosts couldn't sense him or his core in human form because All it was doing now was fretting. Why was Hood up and about already? How dare he? How dare he leave the comfy bed he made him? He should still be sleeping. Was he still bandaged? Was he healed? Why was he not dressed in comfy clothes instead of this macho leather thing that apparently crossed over to his civilian life? Why is he hot? What? No, now is not the time. He needs to make sure Hood is okay while not letting on that it was him that patched him up. Why couldn't his friend's brother just be some guy? Wait, do Tim and them know that their brother is a probable crime boss? Probably Dick. Jazz figured Danny out after all. It's most likely an older sibling thing. Damien would definitely know. Tim, maybe, but Dick probably told him or something. Damn. All rich people are Fruit Loops, aren't they? Danny tries not to stare as he spirals. He feels Hood freeze as his eyes land on Danny, locking onto his. It feels like lightning through his body. The eye contact makes his skin vibrate with something unknown. Danny's core feels like it's going to freeze the whole building as it rumbles its hello to the man in front of him, even if Hood's not core didn't call back. Thankfully, thank clockwork that no one but him can hear it. But Damien does step in front of Danny defensively when he sees his brother's intense stare on his friend. Damien started on a defensive rant backed by Tim, but Hood relaxes and teases them back. He hears the nickname Demon Brat from Hood and raises a sassy eyebrow at the newcomer. Dick joins in with his 2 cents as well. So, Tim, Damien, mind telling me who the walking fridge who came in with Dick is? And Danny says after a few minutes of letting the four hash it out. Looking over Hood again, damn, he really was built like a tank. And yet he didn't strike Danny as a meathead jock. Probably comes with the nightlife of being a crime boss. Damien was the first to respond. Yes, sorry, Danny. Forgive us for being so rude. This oaf you see here is my father's second oldest son, Jason. Damien's voice held an unnoticeable bitterness that held history. Danny could tell he cared for his brother, but something kept his guard up. Probably the crime boss thing Danny's brain supplied. Thanks for that, demon brat. Hood, no, Jason, replied sarcastically, rolling his eyes. He then properly turned to address Danny, putting on a more friendly expression. Fridge, huh? He chuckled. Name's Jason Todd. At your disservice. The taller man almost purred as he held out his hand. As he took his hand to shake it, Danny was reminded how Hood/Jason had flirted with him while bleeding out. The tone of voice was almost the exact same as it is now. Was he being flirted with? No, probably not. Why would anyone be flirting right now? Why with him? Probably trying to intimidate him. Maybe. He was a crime boss. Why were social interactions so hard? Danny could feel his face heating up. He wanted to go back to sleep. Danny, he'd managed to get out as his gaze was trapped by beautiful green-blue eyes and a devilish smirk. Those eyes held something undefined, something feral, something familiar. But he wasn't afraid, and Jason could tell. He gave Danny's hand a little squeeze before letting go. How about we order some food? Dickie's buying, Jason spoke in amusement, with a hint of something else dripped in his voice. Tim and Damien were right. This was a mistake. Chapter 10. Basket. Summary. The boys get lunch. Jason wanted to be on time. He wanted to walk through those stores in exactly 20 minutes. Normally, he wouldn't give a fuck about punctuality, especially when he's hurt, but first impressions were important. It didn't matter how pretty this Danny guy was. Jason wanted the guy to know he wasn't to be messed with. Being a bat meant their lives were dangerous, and having friends was risky. Being a Wayne meant people tried to take advantage of you. There was a reason most of their friends were supers themselves. So here he was, dragging Dick along because somehow they all forgot that fact and befriended some out-of-town rando meta, even if he was very, very pretty. At exactly 20 minutes, they came through the front door of Batburger. Immediately, was a chill sent down Jason's spine. The pits murmured with an unknown sensation. Jason squared his shoulders and looked around. The place wasn't busy, since it wasn't yet time for the lunch rush, and he easily spotted his brothers. His gaze barely made it to their friend before he froze. The moment he sees Danny, the world stops. He knew from the photos that Danny was beautiful, but they really didn't do the young man justice. He was almost ethereal, wild raven black hair with a mind of its own, framed his pale face like it was painted on by a Renaissance artist trying to capture a depiction of an angel, sharp teeth that poked out a lopsided grin at something one of his brothers said. He had an energy about him that radiated safety and comfort, despite being barely taller than Damien. The pits gave an almost purring feeling, settling in a strange warmth. Danny seemed to soothe the anxious energies of his brothers. Even Damien seemed relaxed around their new friend. Dick called out a greeting as Jason collected himself and put on his hood face, as Tim called it. The group in front of them all turned towards them, and Jason's eyes met Danny's. Tired ice eyes bore into his soul. Jason feels as if the whole room is being filled with that ice as the pits are quiet and still. Lightning and fire fill his blood. It's terrifying. It's familiar. It's hypnotic. And Jason's not sure he even wants to look away. His face hardened at this fact, fearing the pits rising at a challenge, but Danny didn't look away. Danny wasn't afraid, but Danny didn't know. Damien steps in front of Danny and said something vaguely threatening along with Tim, and the trance is broken. Jason replies with something smart, pulling out the hood persona, and next thing he knows, he's verbally going at it with all three of his brothers. Jason can't help but keep glancing at Danny every now and then as he watches the brothers argue with a cocked eyebrow. He seems amused, but something in his eyes holds an emotion close to worry mixed with stress. Jason is definitely leaving an impression all right, just not the one he was aiming for. Eventually, Danny speaks up. Jason finally gets to hear his voice, and it is a beautiful blend of full of sass, sarcasm, and a Midwestern drawl. So, Tim, Damien, mind telling me who the walking fridge who came in with Dick is? Danny says as he looks Jason over. Danny's attention on him is sharp and full of an odd mix of emotions. Yes, sorry, Danny, forgive us for being so rude. This oaf you see here is my father's second oldest son, Jason. Damien spat out in his usual way of talking, though he was gentler when referring to Danny. Thanks for that, demon brat, Jason sharply replied sarcastically, rolling his eyes. God, the kid needed to get that stick out of his ass. Problems for another day. He properly turned to address Danny, putting on a more friendly expression. Fridge, huh? He chuckled, doing more of his Red Hood voice than his brothers would probably like. Name's Jason Todd. At your disservice. The taller man knowingly purred as he held out his hand. He could see the dissatisfied faces on both his younger brothers and broke into a grin. Danny hesitantly took it. He was worried, but clearly not for himself. Danny's hands were like ice, and the bone-deep chill that went through Jason felt like a drug. Jason suddenly doesn't want to let go. His insides are basically on fire, but he's not in any pain aside from his shoulder. The pits rumbled with a chorus of mine, mine, mine at the touch that Jason was thankful no one could hear. The emotions throw him off, just like the week before. Was it going to affect his judgment? Jason knows he doesn't know this guy, doesn't know if he's safe for his family, definitely isn't remotely close enough to him to claim him as his. The pits were going to get him killed again at this rate. Jason schools himself. He came here to be the scary older brother, and the pits won't stop him. They locked eyes as Jason towered over Danny. Despite Jason's efforts, Danny doesn't look intimidated. He looks concerned. Danny. His name comes out in an almost chirping sound. The back of his mind tells him that he's heard that noise before, but he can't quite place it. Jason unconsciously gives Danny's hand a little squeeze before letting go. The Pits are annoyed at the loss of contact and let him know. It's weird how the Pits are acting around Danny, and he wonders if it really has anything to do with his meta powers. Maybe he was the problem. The Pits have been acting weird for over 2 weeks now, and Danny was the first new person he had interacted with in that time. So it definitely was his fault he was feeling this way. Jason wasn't sure how long he'd be able to handle this meeting if that's the case. Not the best look if he gets a spike of pit madness. How about we order some food? Dickie's buying, Jason spoke in amusement with a hint of intrigue. He wants to run away. He wants to know everything. They get in line to order their food. Damien and Danny are discussing the vegan nuggets and if Danny should try them. Danny says he's already had the classic burger when he was here with Dick and that he wants to make sure the vegan nuggets are good before he recommends them to people later. Damien nods along agreeingly. After Dick pays for the food, they grab a corner booth in the back. Danny is snugly between Tim and Damien as he and Tim talk about the idea of a Justice League themed restaurant and if the actual Justice League would ever eat there. They continue to talk as they wait for their food. After a minute or two, one of Danny's hands makes its way into Damien's hair, giving little scratches here or there. Jason watches in shock as Damien leads into the touch without breaking from his conversation with him and Dick. The contact brings out an ugly hot feeling in Jason's stomach. It feels like the Pits are on fire with a level of possessiveness that is not earned. Damn those Pits. He doesn't know Danny. He has no right to feel this way, yet here he is. Dick, for his part, doesn't say anything, but he shoots Jason a weirdly smug look. It pisses Jason off. To offset this, Jason brings it upon himself to grill Danny. Danny, unsurprisingly, or not, answers with easy comfort and sass, shooting back his own questions about Jason. Somewhere along the line, the grilling became flirting on Jason's part, to the annoyance of his brothers. Danny doesn't seem to notice the change, responding with the same sass and wit as before. Aside from some of Jason's more direct comments, earning a pretty little blush before one of his brother takes over the conversation for a bit, he takes those as a victory and backs down for a while. Tim decides he's going to apparently kill the mood and makes a joke, sarcasm dripping in his voice. You're losing your title of biggest pun maker in the family, Dick, earning groans from him and his brothers all around. Jason lets out a snort. No way in hell is B meeting adoption bait over here. Danny makes a face like Jason said something horrific. Who's B? Damien made a face as he spoke, our father. He's adopted everyone but myself, and it's an inside joke with my brothers that father has a type. Danny's face goes through a roulette of emotions before settling on disgust. No thank you. Already had one rich Fruit Loop try to adopt me. I don't need another. Thanks, Danny barks out before realizing what he said and shrinking into himself. I mean, that was slightly concerning. Nah, I get it. It sounds weird to say outside the family, and rich people all got a few screws loose, but we're not offended. We get it. Jason smoothed over with a laugh, easily enough. B's not like that. We just like giving him a hard time. He had almost forgotten that Dick had told him that Danny seemed to be running from something. Apparently, that something had to do with weird rich creeps. A meta coming to Gotham to get away was normal. A meta with someone looking for them was trouble. And Danny seemed to be nothing but trouble. B's got a good heart. His head probably needs checking, though, Jason chuckled as his brothers nodded along. Annie looked skeptical, but didn't push it further. Sure thing, big guy. The conversation flowed normally after that, along with the Pits behaving itself, and when they finished eating after that, Jason remembered to give Danny his number. Damien was furious, and Tim was mortified, but Jason didn't care. You're not too bad, short stack, Jason teased as he gave a friendly slap to Dick, wincing a little at forgetting not to use his bad arm. Danny side-eyed him, eyebrow cocked in worry with a tad of annoyance. He looked like he remembered something. Yeah, yuck it up, big guy. After Danny left, all his brothers teamed up to complain about his behavior towards Danny. Jason blew them off and said he was going to patrol. Dick gave him a pitiful look, but he ignored him. He didn't care if he was hurt. He had steam to blow off after the pits acting weird all lunch. Unfortunately, it was a quiet day, and nothing of note happened. He called it a day after a few hours and went home. When he got to the safe house, he was greeted with a surprise. On the counter of his kitchenette was a care basket. It was full of bandages, painkillers, tea, breakfast bars, fruit, bath salts, and an odd candle. With it came a note. Even big scary bosses need rest. Please, take it easy, big guy. Angel. Jason chuckled. See, Dickie? His angel wasn't going to cause trouble.